Hello, welcome to It's in the Bag, Thriving with the Stoma. I am Mindy Conklin. I am the Executive Director of Hitting Cancer Below the Belt, and we are thrilled to have Tressa Breindel, who is a licensed acupuncturist, as well as she has her master's in Oriental medicine. She's a functional medicine specialist, and I will do a formal introduction of her in just one moment, but we're extremely excited to have her because we get many questions all the time from folks out there in regards to their ileostomies or colostomies. And Tressa is our go-to girl. So thank you, Tressa, so much for being here. A little bit about Hitting Cancer Below the Belt. We're a colon health and cancer prevention organization. So what does that mean? That actually means that we are focused on helping the gut and the gut microbiome become as healthy as possible to help prevent disease, all disease basically, but we primarily focus on colorectal cancer prevention. We offer education. We offer we fund colorectal cancer screening programs for 9 health clinics across the state of Virginia, and we also deliver support services for cancer patients and survivors. This series is part of our Fight Right initiative. When Hitting Cancer Below the Belt talks about prevention, we like to think about three different actions, if you will: nourish, move, and breathe. We have to eat every day, we have to move every day, and we have to breathe every day. So as opposed to adding more to your to-do list, we're really focused on making sure that we walk through life being aware of how are we eating, how are we moving enough, are we moving too much, how are we breathing. All of these 3 behaviors are extremely important and can help you actually prevent disease. All right, I am very happy now to introduce Ms. Tressa Breindel. Tressa is the founder and practitioner at InHealthRVA, a functional medicine and Chinese medicine clinic devoted to investigating and treating the underlying causes of health conditions. She is also a 29-year Crohn's disease thriver. And she's had an ostomy for the past 7 years. She's also an amazing runner. She's here tonight to talk about some important health points about how to thrive while living with an ostomy. Thank you, Tressa.
Thanks, Mindy. Hi, everyone. I'm Tressa. I'm the founder and main practitioner at InHealthRVA, which I started here in Richmond in early 2016. I'm going to be going over a bit about what functional medicine is and some GI health issues that I think are important to anyone who might be dealing with an ostomy or colon cancer. And then I'm going to hopefully spend the bulk of the time talking about ostomies. As I was joking with Mindy earlier, we have to go through a very, very significant and difficult vetting process to be able to be an expert on ostomies. So I'm uniquely qualified to do that here tonight. So first, just a little bit about functional medicine. It was started by people like me who wanted a better idea of understanding what was going on with their health conditions. So I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when I was 14. And even from the beginning, I was asking why. Why do I have this health condition? Not just what immunosuppressants or immunomodulating drugs might dampen the symptoms, but what's going on? How did I get this way? Why am I flaring? Why am I in remission? So mainly the difference between kind of conventional medicine and functional medicine, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, is functional medicine is really, really steeped in physiology research. So that's what I went into in order to understand autoimmune disease, gut health, all kinds of things. So this is just a little bit of an example of the kind of stuff that we dive into. I'm going to talk about the gut microbiome here a little bit briefly in a few slides. But the gut microbiome, very important in colon cancer, and knowing about it and modulating it, supporting a healthy gut microbiome, which is a lot of what Mindy does with her work, is really, really important in the prevention and maintenance of after having colon cancer, so you can not have it come back and remain healthy. So as I mentioned, I got into functional medicine. I was actually a political science major at first, totally didn't mean to go into medicine. And really by about 22 years old, had failed all pharmaceutical and surgical options for my Crohn's disease. I was also dealing with a lot of chronic fatigue, hadn't heard of chronic fatigue syndrome, But so the drugs that I was on, and I was basically on everything you can be on, at very best might have controlled some of the worst of the symptoms, but at bad times, not even that. And I really, really wanted to live a full life. As Mindy mentioned, I've been an athlete since I was 14, so it wasn't enough for me just to survive my illness. I wanted to be an athlete, I wanted to have a career, and I knew that the only way to do that was to figure out how and why I got sick. My family also has a lot of other complex autoimmune diseases and inflammatory disorders. And so I just decided I needed to figure out how this was all connected. I knew that this was all connected somehow, and I just dove into research, went into research, neuroendocrine immunology, stress neuroscience research, and then later Chinese medicine. So the point being is that we don't want to negate at all the life-saving, miraculous interventions that 20th century and early 21st century medicine provides for us. But it isn't the sum totality of medical practice. They do a great job of saving lives in using pharmaceuticals to suppress symptoms and allow people to survive. What it doesn't do such a great job of is understanding the causes of illness, providing comprehensive personalized healthcare and other options besides pharmaceuticals for just controlling disease processes. So that's what InHealthRVA is dedicated to doing. That's what my life's passion and work is about. So functional medicine, a little bit more about that is, whereas you might have 10 to 15 minutes with your practitioner, and it is basically a different doctor for each body system. It's the job of functional medicine practitioner to do really in-depth, long questioning of your entire life health history. The way I talk about it is I'm like Sherlock Holmes. I walk onto the scene, that's you, and I have to kind of interview all of the possible suspects to see who is the most likely people, culprits involved in your health problems. And so it's an entirely in-depth, long health questioning process, along with a lot of different more advanced labs looking at the gut microbiome, stool and breath tests to understand what's going on in there, toxins, nutrients, hormones, immunology, inflammation, and not having a different person in charge of these, but having one person who understands how all of these are connected and can influence each other. So in short, conventional medicine is really, really great at identifying lab markers and using pharmaceuticals or surgical interventions in order to keep these lab markers within normal. So that's what I was getting early on with my disease, although I still have very significant flares on medications. But if my disease markers were under control, I was considered good to go, where really I felt terrible, my gut still hurt, I really couldn't be the person I wanted to be. So what we do instead with functional medicine is really understand why inflammation happens and all of the different variables that are damaged by that. All right, now we're going to dive a little bit into the physiology of your gut, colon and rectal cancer, and the gut microbiome, and then we'll move on into a lot of information about stomas and ostomies. So there's a lot more conditions of the gut than this, but these are some of the three big ones: irritable bowel syndrome, inflammatory bowel disease, and colon and rectal cancer. And I'm going to talk to these about these kind of connected because they all have something to do with the gut microbiome, which Mindy is one of your big topics as well, I know. I just want to point out a few differences between IBS and IBD. So if someone's having GI symptoms and they go to a gastroenterologist, they'll often do a colonoscopy, maybe a barium swallow, and if they find patterns of inflammation, like they can see it with their cameras, you're basically put into the inflammatory bowel disease category. If they see nothing, you're put into the irritable bowel syndrome category. That's a little bit simplistic, but in short, both of them are related to the gut microbiome and inflammatory processes. Just with irritable bowel syndrome, some different underlying causes, but both need to be addressed by looking at the gut microbiome, at least for starters. And then, as I'll point out with colon and rectal cancer, managing and modifying and improving the gut microbiome is huge in prevention. So if you're here, maybe you're dealing with that. Hopefully we can work on getting more awareness around that so that we can prevent it, because prevention is really the strongest form of medicine for colon and rectal cancer. So in brief, this huge topic of the gut microbiome, hopefully some of you have already heard about this, but there's 100 trillion microbes that are mostly bacteria living in your intestines. That's 10 times more cells living in your intestines than there are cells of you in your body. There's over 1,500 different species and counting. Your gut is the second most innervated place in your body after your brain. And it's just very complex, not yet that great, well understood. We discovered it around the turn of the century, so we've been studying it for about 20 years. I compare the gut microbiome to like a rainforest. So if you know about rainforests, it's not just a handful of plant and animal species. There's these incredibly complex interdependencies and connections of the mushrooms are feeding the roots of the tree, which are communicating to the leaves, which are housing birds, which are, I mean, it's just so much more than a handful of probiotics. So the gut microbiome and its relation to IBS, IBD, and colon cancer. So 70 to 80% of the entire immune system and all of its activity occurs in the intestines. So when we're thinking about inflammation anywhere in the body, especially the gut, we need to be thinking about the gastrointestinal system. Whether GI issues, the gut microbiome, food intolerances, leaky gut are a direct cause of that condition, that may or may not be true. But if you have issues in the gut microbiome, leaky gut, food intolerances, or food allergies, it's going to exacerbate, inflame, and make worse any inflammatory condition that you have. There's a lot of research and understanding this, what a lot of people call leaky gut, technically called intestinal permeability, always exists with autoimmune disease. So if you are dealing with an autoimmune disease, whether it's like Hashimoto's hypothyroid, an inflammatory bowel disease, arthritis, you want to be focusing on healing the gut. Oops, I just had a little internet problem. Oh, we got it, we're back. Okay, sorry. So you can see, if you can see on this little schematic down here, the gut has been now studied to be related to many, many health conditions, from cancer to diabetes, obesity, inflammatory conditions of all sorts. A quick mention about leaky gut. So our gut is our major interface between us and the outside world. It needs to be a barrier so that not just anything can come inside of our body, but of course, obviously it needs to let in food, nutrients, calories, all of those sorts of things. So that's why there's such an incredibly complex immune system there. It's basically this border patrol that needs to let in what we want to have let in and defend against what we don't want to have coming inside of our body. And when we get too leaky, when that defense system gets leaky, stuff gets in, it gets exposed to our immune system and inflames us, and often our whole entire body. So colon and rectal cancer. It's the third most prevalent cancer in the world. And one of the most important things that we can do to treat colon cancer is to screen for it. And that's what Hitting Cancer Below the Belt's mission is. I'm so impressed, and I've learned so much from Mindy, because I'm so much on the side of treating health conditions. To be honest, before you, I really was not as aware at, really making sure my people who aren't pooping every day, who've had IBD, really making sure that they're getting their colon cancer screening and understanding the difference between the people who need a colonoscopy versus the people who can use the mail-in stool kits. So I'm really grateful for being part of this and learning all that and helping people there. And then another thing that Mindy's organization does, follow-up care, making sure people understand how to heal when they're dealing with cancer and after cancer, and making sure that people, once they're getting screened, if they're dealing with cancer, they have access to treatment. And I'll touch a little bit on prevention as well. And I would say prevention is also part of treatment. So whether we want to think about preventing colon cancer or whether you're dealing with it, a lot of the recommendations are very similar. Diet and lifestyle is foundational. I do a lot of fancy in-depth testing and complicated protocols, but there is no substitute for diet and lifestyle. There's just nothing you can take or do that will supplement if those things are off. I like to talk about poop a lot. We want a daily, complete, normal bowel movement. IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, especially inflammatory bowel disease, constipation, diarrhea, anything that's irregular is associated with inflammation in the gut. Inflammation in the gut causes cellular changes different than your immune system can keep up with, and that's when cancer can happen. So, you know, I don't want people to be too obsessed with it, but if you're not having a really good, regular, complete bowel movement every day, you want to think about working with a functional medicine practitioner about getting that checked and healthfully and naturally getting to that point. All right, risks and prevention. I'm just going to go over this really, really quick. This is a huge topic in and of itself. But as I said, diet and lifestyle are foundational. Fiber really reduces the chances of colon cancer, helps you have a daily form bowel movement. If you're eating lots of fiber, you're probably eating lots of plants, tons of phytonutrients, polyphenols, polyunsaturated fats, all of that comes from plants. So you're doing a great job if you're getting all that fiber and getting a lot of plants. And then unprocessed is another thing I like people to focus on. Not because junk food is good or bad. I like to take any of the judgment off of it. But basically, if we understand that processed food did not exist for the human body for our entire time on this planet, up until very, very recently, we're just not adapted to eating processed food. It's not a normal source of fuel for us. So just like you wouldn't put diesel fuel in your gas engine, your body doesn't quite handle the processed food very well. So unprocessed, lots of fiber, lots of plants. I almost forgot to include these bottom ones because I just take it for granted. But yeah, exercise, don't smoke, and decrease alcohol consumption. Exercise actually has a lot of data behind it for reducing the chances of colon cancer. And as a lot of you may know, it helps you have a bowel movement. So, all right, so now we get to my favorite part. Stomas and ostomies. My family knows, I don't know if this is common. I haven't gotten to meet, I was talking with Mindy earlier, I haven't met a whole lot of other ostomates, but I've always sort of had fun with this as much as you can have fun with a severe disease that causes you to need an ostomy. But I mean, it's kind of a silly thing. I like to make the most of it. I've always been very open with it. That's not the case for everyone. And I always want to respect everyone's privacy. But I really kind of consider it fascinating, amazing. I think they're really cool. So here we go. Okay, so the quick quiz, if we had a big audience tonight, would be, what is a stoma? Is a stoma, a life-saving procedure that vexes the Grim Reaper? Is it a prestigious award for heroes given to a very select group of unique individuals? Is it a mouth? So the truth is, it's all of the above. I do consider it quite the biggest award you can get for making it this far. So it is Greek for mouth and actually refers to any opening of the body. So your mouth is a stoma. You have a lot of other stomas I won't point to. But basically what we're talking about tonight is an artificially created mouth that can be from, I had to look this perfect definition, but any hollow organ. So it could be from a urethra, it could be from a colon, it could be from a small intestine. And basically it's created in order to replace organs that are damaged by disease, cancer, or accidents. And it permits the exit of that hollow organ's fluids to the outside of the body when, for whatever reasons, that organ can no longer do that. Famous ostomates, I didn't know this one. Dwight D. Eisenhower had Crohn's disease. We're in good company. Another fun fact, Kennedy had pretty severe ulcerative colitis. He didn't have an ostomy, but so there's a lot of people who did a lot of things with severe bowel issues. So Fred Astaire later on in life, unknown type, he wasn't very public about it. Someone who was very public about it, Rolf Bernischke, I actually got to meet him when I was younger. He wrote a book about it and continued playing in the NFL. So if you have an ostomy and someone tells you you can't play contact sports, not necessarily true. You want to take some precautions, but he was a professional NFL player with a colostomy. And then some speculate that Napoleon Bonaparte was. He was in a lot of battles. That could very well be possible. There we go. So short and long-term expectations. So if it was open surgery, which a lot of people who have, they have a lot of stuff they have to go in and clean up, it's a much longer recovery period. I'd say 3 months minimum. I won't say you feel like I didn't feel like running, I wasn't back to my normal activities completely yet, but I could get around like a vaguely normal person after that point. It is a pretty intense surgery if they do full cut you open stem to stern. But most people, especially with colon cancer, it's a laparoscopic procedure. They go in, they poke a couple holes, stick some cameras in and some implements and get that thing out of you, and you really recover almost like a gallbladder surgery, a little bit more than that. It's really pretty simple. It's kind of amazing. Like I've met a few people who've had their colon out and I look at them and they just have these little poke holes and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. There's a lot of myths around core strengthening. Do not avoid it. You need to think about doing it properly, really mindfully, and don't do it too early on. Honestly, I would be doing only like first nothing for the first 8 to 12 weeks. And then after that, really, really gentle, working on form, not really just trying to grunt out the numbers or the crunches or the core strength. I still have to pay pretty good attention. And I use a hernia support belt. They make special hernia support belts that have a hole for your ostomy, and it holds it and provides a little plastic plate that provides extra support, because wherever they've made that cut in your abdominal wall is a weak area, and your intestine can basically leak out. It can just sort of leak out when you're squishing your abdomen. It's more likely you could herniate there and get what's called a peristomal hernia, or peri meaning behind, the stoma hernia. So just be really, really mindful of it, but it's actually incredibly important because you do have a cut now in your abdomen. I've noticed for example, with my running, I've been really, really lucky for running almost for 30 years and not really having any injuries. And I've had a little niggling thing since I've had my ostomy, because there's now a break in my sort of almost unconscious core structure. And if I don't do stuff to sort of retrain that core support, I use my legs wrong because, yeah, they're just not entrained properly. So absolutely do your core strengthening. It can prevent hernias. It will keep you active. It will keep you injury free. And then the other really important thing that I don't feel they talk about enough is once you have an ostomy, and I don't quite understand why, but you're more likely to get bowel obstructions. And so what that basically means is, for some reason, the motion of the intestine, it doesn't quite squeeze things through as well as it maybe could or used to. And so, for example, if you eat a lot of sweet potato skins or rough cauliflower and carrots and broccoli and don't chew it really well, it basically gets stuck and you'll know it. You get very nauseous, vomiting, a lot of pain. You'll need to go to the ER probably for some management of some of that. So avoid the skins of things, chew raw foods really, really well. That being said, I eat a lot of salads. I just chew them really well. And I peel the skins off my potatoes. So.
Quick question. Would that be
Yeah.
like apple skins too?
Yeah, no apple skins for me either. Yeah. Yeah. And so I will say that's ileostomies are more prone to that than colostomies. And I guess the other thing I'll say about bowel obstructions is the more scar tissue development you have, the more likely you're to have bowel obstruction. So if you really didn't have a lot of surgery, they didn't have to recut anything, and you only have a colostomy, this is probably, especially if you have, you had only a short bowel resection, it wasn't a huge part of your colon, you're much likely to have bowel obstructions. The more they take out and the more scar tissue you may have developed if you've had a lot of surgeries down there, the more likely you'll have the obstructions. I will say, they didn't tell me this at first too. If you get a bowel obstruction, so the best management is basically rest. There's some yoga poses, hot baths. Honestly, here's something we can edit this out later if we need to. Go for a run. It feels horrible, but if you can shake it out. So honestly, there's this trick that I've found from different ostomy groups of drinking Coca-Cola. And I always get bowel obstructions if I get them at night. So I use like caffeine-free diet Coca-Cola. I don't ever drink soda ever otherwise, but I'll keep a 2 liter of that handy. And it's like, oh, it's 10 o'clock and I had a salad for dinner when I was hurrying, and I will chug a whole bunch of Coca-Cola and then like go dance in the living room for a while, take a hot bath, lay on my left side so it can exit, and usually I'll make it by morning. But if you do fully have a bowel obstruction, you are to not, that's when I think that I can work it out and still move it out. If you're to the point of vomiting, stop all fluid intake. It's only going to make it worse. If you're in a lot of pain and losing a lot of fluids through vomiting, that's the time to go to the ER and get IV fluids, nausea medicine, pain medicine, and an NG tube, a nasogastric tube. So where they go up through your nose, down into your stomach. And what it does is it just helps empty your stomach so you're less nauseous, and it can take some of the pressure off. And then, I mean, I'm not sure, we can edit this out too if we need to. So another thing I learned only recently is if your obstructions tend to happen close to the stoma, I actually got some of the red hosing, and it's basically like a pump turkey baster. I got it in the hospital. And what I do is I get a little thing of warm water with a handful of like Epsom salts, and I take the orange tubing and I thread it into the hole in my stoma real carefully, as far as I can get it to go. And then I take the turkey baster with the magnesium salt water and pump it in. Yeah, so I flush it out. You have to be real comfortable with your stoma. Yeah, you know, like you have to, and just get comfortable with it. It's your body. Yeah, I've made it through at least 1 or 2 2 or 3 suspected bowel obstructions that way. So yeah, you get to play with your body. You get to be a little mini surgeon. Yeah, I've definitely had a few bowel obstructions, especially before I figured it out. I haven't had one now in almost 2 years. Touch wood. Yeah. Okay. So some other things to expect with having an ostomy. You know, I say bring extra supplies. I haven't had an accident in so long. I don't really bring extra supplies like I'm used to. But if you're going to stay overnight anywhere, bring extra supplies. And by extra supplies, I mean a bag, adhesive remover, a waste bag. I actually use my dog's biodegradable poop bags, and the paste or whatever things you might use. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. If you don't have a blow dryer, buy a blow dryer. After you shower, after you swim, if you blow dry what is basically the sticker of the ostomy, and I'll show that to you in a little bit, dry, you get, it's much more comfortable. You'll get way more life out of your ostomy. Especially if you have an ileostomy, you're going to have way more increased bowel frequency. I exercise a lot, so I eat a lot. So I might go like 8, 9, 10 times a day to empty the bag. If you have a colostomy, you might only go once or twice a day, like a regular person. Again, it just depends on how much of your colon you've retained. The more colon you have, the more inside storage you have. And then I use a lot of food. So I take daily Imodium. I just buy it. I don't know who else needs Imodium in bulk. I'm always like, who's buying 200 count anti-diarrheal besides people? And like, are there that many of me? But yeah, you can get that on Amazon, a 200 count bottle of Imodium. Eating like potatoes, rice, oatmeal, that sort of stuff. You can use some things like, there's a health product that's made out of bentonite clay. You can use activated charcoal. Some of these things help bind. And then I just finished talking extensively about bowel obstructions. You know, don't overdo it, especially if you're someone who has strictures, scar tissue. If there's any narrowing, you have to really, you know, find your right balance here. So you're going to have to, as you see me drinking a ton, when you don't have your colon's main job is basically a storage facility. It stores your stool and takes all of the water and actually bile out of it. And it takes in salts, which are basically like electrolytes. So if you don't have your colon, you're going to need to drink a lot more and even substitute electrolytes. So if I'm not drinking mineral water and I have a very heavy addiction to mineral water, I use something like this. It doesn't have to be this one, but I use some mineral drops in my water. I find if I drink water without minerals, I just kind of pee it out and I stay really thirsty, and a bunch of other stuff happens. I get pretty electrolyte depleted. I salt my food heavily. It's been so long I've been doing that. I'm not sure if it's just because I like it, but I get away with it because yeah, I need a lot of salt.
We promote Celtic salt or Himalayan salt. What kind of salt do you use?
I mainly use sea salt and Himalayan salt because of a little bit of extra minerals. Yeah. I will say that like I will substitute either taking iodine or just use some table salt too to get some iodine. So yeah, so drink lots of clean filtered water. If you're sweating a lot, it's amazing. I don't know how many ounces. This has got to be 32 ounces. I mean, I can go through 2 of these before I'm done with work in the day. If I had a really sweaty workout that morning, again, full of minerals and with extra salt on all of my food. I'll even take some salt capsules. That really helps me retain it. you might know some signs. I mean, there's lots of reasons why this could happen, but if you feel kind of tired, if your stomach's feeling kind of off, you've got a little light headache, if you're peeing a lot, you might just need some salt. So especially if you have an ileostomy, pay attention to that, especially if you're very active. Any other questions about it?
Yeah, the reason why I ask is because a lot of people are fearful of salt, but it's really, we are salt. We have salt in our bodies. We need it.
Yeah, and so Mindy was saying that basically a lot of people are afraid of salt, but it has a lot of great minerals and we really need it. And research has shown now that salt does not affect blood pressure unless you already have high blood pressure. So don't be afraid of salt. And where salt is bad for you is when you're eating processed crap. And then it's just the whole smorgasbord of all of that stuff leads to all kinds of things that contribute to high blood pressure. So if you're talking about real food, plants, organic, salt, especially with all the other nutrients, is really good for you. Yeah, absolutely. Another thing they probably don't tell you, nutrients. So colon is, again, doesn't really absorb nutrients for us. It's not absorbing calories, protein, carbs, fats, or minerals or vitamins, or excuse me, it does do minerals and electrolytes, but not vitamins. However, if you have had let me step back. Your small intestine, the end of it that's connected to your colon is called the ileum. And between the small intestine and the large intestine is called the ileocecal valve. And depending on where the cancer is, you might have had that end of your small intestine resectioned, taken out. That's an important place for B12 absorption. So you want to really make sure you're taking like a sublingual methylcobalamin B12, not cyanocobalamin. Probably not a capsule, it doesn't absorb well in stomach acid. So you want that methylcobalamin B12. If you're missing parts of your small bowel, that is where we absorb vitamins, minerals, calories, especially the first part, the duodenum. So if you've had any resections there, then there's a whole other, you need to make sure you get nutrient testing and be taking some form of nutrients that you're gonna get and absorb. So, and there's a variety of ways of doing that, testing and getting those if you have that. So probably just email me or something. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So what can't you do with an ostomy? And I actually sat around and I was like, what can I do? What can I do? And like, I had to really think about it. And this is what I came up with. I can't sleep on my stomach anymore. I used to sleep on my stomach. I love to sleep on my stomach. If you have a colostomy, you might be able to. A lot of people with colostomies can actually take the bag off and go without it for a while. So this is mainly true for an ileostomy. I'll have to ask some colostomates if they can sleep on their stomach. I can't eat a lot of sweet potato skins. Those block me up. And I can't eat stuff quickly without chewing well. I can't eat apple skins. I didn't swim for a while with my ileostomy. I've actually taken up swimming lately. And I was really, really wanting to wear one of those 2-piece kind of like athletic bikinis. Not enough support. I need a 1-piece. I was like, I haven't had an accident so long. And like a couple weeks ago, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to give this ostomy talk, and I almost lost my ostomy in the pool. Had a couple of nightmares for a few nights after that. So yeah, you need a lot of support when you swim because the drag is just going to pull it down. It is a sticker on skin that does dissolve in water. Ileostomy, more than colostomy, long rides without bathroom stops. So like I used to like be more adventurous, let's go on a bus in Guatemala for 10 hours or something like that. I couldn't do that anymore unless I got real creative with like, some containers and emptying or something like that. So I mean, like where there is a will, there's a way, but that would be not my first choice. Contact sports without stoma and ostomy protection. So if you are someone who wants to get back to contact sports, they make these like basically like little cages. So you have this like plastic or little metal protective cage on a belt for your ostomy. I mean, I still wouldn't want to be drug across the ground with that, but it's still very, very possible. So you just will have to use that protection. Can you think of anything else an ostomate couldn't do?
I always wondered about the swimming, so it's great to know.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of triathletes out there. Yeah, for sure. Just lasso it down. Okay, so there's what can you do? Climb Mount Everest. There's this guy Rob Hill. He has published a lot of stuff about his climbing Mount Everest with Crohn's disease and with a colostomy. you can now poop standing up. This is wonderful when it comes to public restrooms and porta potties. You don't have to sit down. You don't have to scratch in the woods anymore. You can just kind of like, anyway, maybe that's TMI, but you can poop standing up. Just aim for the good of all people. And yeah, basically everything else. I was really trying to think, and I was asking my partner and some friends, like, what can I do? Yeah, I've done marathons, biking, ultra mountain runs, swimming, camping, traveling. I got into salsa dancing for a while. I don't know if it's like, so there's this one move where you grab them by the hips and spin them around. This one guy grabbed me by the hips and spun me, and he was like, what is that? And I just smiled and spun. Just let them be confused is kind of what I say. Like, nobody really understands what's like, people don't know what an ostomy is, and just let them be confused. It's kind of amusing. I was single when I got this, and dating. And I wanted to speak to that because I think that might be a concern for people who are single. So I would say that it never was a hindrance in dating. And I think I can think of 2 guys that I had a couple dates with. And by like the 3rd date, I was like wanting to let them know what was going on with my health. And they basically like stepped away and had some other reason why, of course, no, they didn't want to talk to me anymore. And, you know, of course, I'm not going to lie, it hurts a little. But honestly, good freaking riddance. Like, that is not the person I would want to be with. So silver lining, great screening tool for having an awesome mate. You don't want anybody who's going to be bothered by that. So, and honestly, for the vast majority of men that I dated, it wasn't a problem at all. So just, you know, if you're comfortable with it, they're comfortable with it. So, and as far as when you talk to them about it, I think it's a little different for each person and different for each situation, each dating situation. But I kind of like to bring it up by about the 2nd or 3rd date, just because I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste my time. If we're talking about ourselves, it's going to come up. So, I mean, it's nothing I hide from anyone. So it's just going to come up in natural conversation. So yeah. Yeah. Any of the other thoughts about dating people might want to know?
Thank you for bringing that topic up.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. What can and can't you wear? Honestly, this has taken me a few years. So I'm not saying if you're a woman, you can't wear skin tight clothing. I'm just saying, like, you'll be able to see the outline. You'll be able to see the bag sticking out, you know, own it if you want. Pregnant ladies stick their bellies out. I don't know why we can't. But you know me, I wore this dress kind of on purpose tonight. This is kind of a high-waisted, still very flattering dress, as you'll see in the bottom right corner here. I wear kind of more high-waisted stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of basically it. For men and women who wear pants, you can probably get away with like a belt in a tight around the waist pant with a colostomy because they don't fill up as much or as quickly. But, you know, I prefer a more relaxed fit around the waist and maybe a longer shirt so that if it does start poking out, like, you know, you have a little bit of modesty around that. So I even brought, so I've not too long ago, actually, really just discovered, everybody should know this by now, everybody wears yoga pants, but I get these sort of like, you can't see this very well, but it's kind of like a wide waistband yoga pant. You know, you can wear them for dress pants now, and these things are great. You know, like, first of all, they have support. So now you're having it held in place, which is what I need for everything. They're stretchy, they're forgiving, they're still flattering. And I didn't have a picture of this, but for women, and I don't know why men couldn't also, I discovered, so there's all these special like ostomy underwear that look horrible. I use Spanx. So Spanx are, you know, the underwear that women use that are supposed to kind of like smooth their lines down, and when they're wearing dresses and stuff, they hold ostomies awesome. So, you know, hopefully they make male Spanx, but for women, I would just get some Spanx. It holds the ostomy in great. Okay, so this is another important thing I wanted to bring up is Stealth Belt. I'm not sure if, Mindy, you've heard of Stealth Belt. Okay. It's a company specifically for like athletic, it holds the ostomy. So you'll see an example of the Stealth Belt here in the bottom left corner. They're called Stealth Belt. They're built in black, but I like the really fancy colors. And so there's a key point here. Traditionally, ostomies are worn down, and you have the opening. Most of us will have colostomies, you might not have the opening. I'll get to that in a minute. So for ileostomies, it'll have colostomies that are reusable and you empty. The opening will be hanging down here between your legs. You'll sit on the toilet and empty the ileostomy in between your legs down into the toilet. I very early adopted the stealth belt because I found it really uncomfortable running with that thing hanging down close to between my legs. And then the other thing, side benefit is, so for the stealth belt, you put it on sideways, and then you just kind of have to like bend it down and empty it into the toilet that way. So two things I really like about that. So number one, you can use the stealth belt, and it is what you look like. It looks like that stealth belt, just like a big wide belt. You tuck the ostomy in, it zips on the bottom. You can stick your phone in the back, you can stick your keys, you can stick your gels. I stick everything in that thing. And then the other thing is when my ileostomy does fill up, now it just looks like I have a little belly. It doesn't look like I have a weird thing and people are guessing about what's going on. So yeah, so like, yeah, I was going to show everybody if they're here tonight, but so like, it just looks like I have a little poofy belly, which is fine. Anyway, and there's models out there, that beautiful woman here on the bottom right here, with her ostomy hanging out, and she's wearing it in the traditional way down. So yeah, and then in the middle, that's a bag cover. So people do these wonderful things. They make these bag covers so you can have fun with it there. Excuse me. So anyway, this is me demonstrating my two styles. On the left is me running with my stealth belt at a half marathon with my friend Sarah. I didn't ask for permission from my friends, but you know, they'll probably be fine. And on the right here is my new way that I found, where I just get these yoga running shorts that have that high-waisted belt like I just showed you with my pants. And then I don't even really need the stealth belt. I use the stealth belt now more for like longer mountain runs if I'm going to be out for a few hours, and I run really a lot of extra support. If I'm just going for runs, the tight yoga shorts are like just fine. Okay, now a little bit about ostomy supplies, and I brought mine for demonstration. So there's a lot of different options. Are we okay on time? Okay, there's a lot of different options here. So this is my style right here, and I'll talk about it. But so basically, this is a one-piece convex, because I actually do have a little bit of peristomal hernia. Multiple use, because I have an ileostomy. You don't want to have to change your bag 10 times a day. But you can get one or two piece. So the two piece would mean that this hard plastic piece, and if you have a flat one, not a convex one, you can often get these more flexible ones. This piece could be separate, and you just stick this on your body, and then this clicks on into there. So a lot of people will wear this flange, it's called, for like a week and just change the bag off and on. For ileostomies, for me, because I do have a little peristomal hernia, so I have this little bubble here that helps push it in. I use a one piece. I've always liked a one piece. I put mine on, so like traditionally it would go on like this. I put mine on sideways. So yeah, and I change it in winter. I change it about twice a week, although now that I'm swimming, it's a little bit more. In summer, or when I was into hot yoga, I had to change it every day. Hot yoga will sweat off an ostomy in no time. So I use lots of support when I go to hot yoga. There's a whole bunch of different ostomy companies. And if you're new to being an ostomy, you call them up and let them know. Actually, they'll often, I don't know, there's some list they get with you on it. You get so much free stuff. I've got scissors and bags. You get free ostomies. If you like free stuff, let all the ostomy companies know about you. So much free stuff. And then another huge thing is like, what extras will you need? A lot of these companies have extra wafers and paste and adhesive removers and sprays and all of these things. And I've kind of tried them all, and everyone's body's different. Everyone's stoma is a little different. But what I really find is just having I went through a ton of ostomies until I found this one that I like. And then I use a paste, and you put the paste just around the hole to kind of get a little caulking protection. So the stool doesn't really at all touch your stomach. And the reason why you don't want the stool to touch your stomach is there's acid, and there's stomach acid in it, and bile, and it will burn, and it eats away at your skin. So that's another thing. Even if you can keep your ostomy on for a long, long time, you don't want to. You want to clean your skin. You want to make sure that there's no damage occurring there at the stoma opening with stool touching on your skin. You don't want to grow yeast and all that stuff. So I recommend changing it probably twice a week at a minimum. I have heard of people doing it only once a week. And then how do you change it? So there's YouTube videos out there. People have done YouTube videos of how they change it. So basically, I like soap and water. And I remember my surgeon first saying that, like he was poo-pooing all of the different gadgets and things that the companies will send you. I'll take adhesive removers in my like travel case or in my emergency case because like I've changed in bathrooms, I've changed in a porta potty. Like when you're in an emergency, you just need something to wipe it off. But otherwise, like after a shower, I'll just soap and water real quick and stand over the toilet and put it on. And then what I do is, remember how I said own a blow dryer? That really helps stick it on. So use the heat to help stick it on. And then actually I use my hernia belt and I basically strap it on and get it stuck on really good for like 5 or 10 minutes, or I'll wear my tight yoga pants to really help stick it on and get it to adhere. And then I'm good to go. And then honestly, I bring my hernia belt with me a lot of, and I should have brought my hernia belt. It's not as huge and ridiculous sounding as it is. It's a pretty narrow kind of just elastic thing with a hole to fit this through. So if I'm like swimming and I'm in danger, or I'm, at the gym or just got done for a sweaty run and I'm like, oh, she's falling off, I just go put my hernia belt on and I'm good to go. It just straps it on. So yeah. Anything else you can think about that?
No, this is just all new information, so it's fascinating.
Yeah, like I said, it's a long educational process to get here. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that it took a while to figure out for me, at least.
And who helped you? Your wound care nurse, or did you figure this out mostly on your own?
So I actually got it back when I was in Colorado, and then I moved here, and honestly, probably didn't have the support team or ostomy care nurse. So I don't know, if I think more people might have more support from an ostomy, or like, so in the next couple of slides, I think there's one that's ask your doctor. Basically I was like, not your doctor, be best friends with your stoma nurse.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so for sure. And maybe at some point I can write up a handout with all these kinds of little things on it. Like I swear it took me like 5 years to figure out what kind of pants to wear and that I could swim. And I wasn't scared of swimming. I just hadn't figured it out yet. I hadn't tried. So yeah. Yeah, so, so this next slide, I'm talking about basically how do you handle mishaps, especially in the first, honestly, like year or two. You're learning stuff. I didn't quite know how to put it on that well. Like I didn't notice for a while that I had a hernia. I didn't have the right ostomy. And I had mishaps, and it happens. Number one, just go to the bathroom, clean it up, pad yourself with toilet paper. Hopefully you have either Spanx or pants on. If you have regular underwear and dress and no support, you just got to hold on to it and go home. But I've done that. I've been at the movies like the first year or so and had an accident and went to the bathroom, cleaned it up, and just waited out for the rest of the movie and went home before I, freaked out about anything. If you're traveling, absolutely carry extra supplies. Some people carry them with them everywhere. I mean, I don't think about it anymore. I probably should. The truth is you might have to go home. So, and I think it's helpful. Like some people are very private about it. Almost everybody I know knows way too much about mine because I call mine my poop sack and show it off at will. And mainly, if you're going to deal with poop, you got to have a sense of humor. It happens, there's lots of good humor to come out of it. So, and it's okay to feel nervous about it. It's okay to feel defeated, frustrated, cry about it too. So you can have those feelings. You don't have to make the best of the situation, but ultimately you can still do everything. You just might have a few mishaps and just get over it and keep getting out there and doing it anyway. So, okay. Yeah. So what to ask the doctor? So mainly stuff for your doctor would be like bleeding, pus, redness around the stoma, tenderness, pain, fever, anything that could look like infection. Sometimes you can get infections, you can get rashes that maybe don't heal. Some people can get yeast infections under the area. So those are things for your doctor. Constant abnormal watery or too frequent bowel movements. Like if you're having just tons of diarrhea, watery diarrhea, I guess I should qualify that. If you have a colostomy, your stools are probably going to still be relatively formed. Again, the more colon you have, the more formed they're going to be. If you have an ileostomy, what we're talking about is, I call it soft serve, oatmeal. That's the kind of consistency that you're dealing with. And I'll be honest, so like I have Crohn's disease, and I run a lot. So it is really watery at sometimes. So I know how to manage that. But like, if you're having it without a good reason, that's something to talk to your doctor about. And then frequent, or what I say, unprovoked bowel obstructions. Like whenever I've had a bowel obstruction, I know it's because I ate something like I shouldn't have, or didn't chew or something like that. When I say unprovoked, it means that like maybe you have scar tissue or strictures. And that is not something, that's something you need to have evaluated. Prolapses or bulges, there isn't a whole lot they do for that, hernia support. Eventually, if you have significant prolapse, they're going to want to do repair surgery eventually, but they put it off as long as possible. But definitely let them know about that so they can evaluate it. And honestly, like, so all these tricks and tips that I'm learning, a stoma and wound care, they call them stoma and wound care. So technically it's a wound. It's an opening of your body that isn't going to ever fully heal. So to talk to him or her about that. And there's a lot of YouTube videos out there with a lot of people giving a lot of tips. So yeah. Okay, so I think this is the last slide. So just kind of some overall points. Remember, extra water, extra salts, extra electrolytes. You can, again, I use soap and water. That's what I really use, but there's also these adhesive remover wipes or spray, which are especially good for traveling. If your stoma gets prolapsed or retracted, there's special ostomies that are convex. There's stoma paste, wafers, tape. You're gonna have to get to know your stoma. Oh, I forgot to mention, my stoma's name is Petunia. So, it takes a while for your stoma to develop. If you have a stoma recently from surgery, it's going to be several months, if not up to a year, till it really reaches its kind of final resting place in size. So you might be using kind of some different things in that first year to adjust the size of your hole on your ostomy and kind of chase that as your stoma changes. Again, I'm a big fan of Imodium. And if you have bowel obstructions due to strictures or scar tissue, be careful with that. We don't want to go too far. And then nutrients, B12 if you've had an ileum resection, vitamin D kind of for everybody. Minerals, if you are the less colon you have, the more you need to pay attention to electrolytes and minerals. So I think that's it. All right, that's it.
Questions?
Yeah, thank you guys.
I got some questions. Renee, do you have a question?
This is all great information. Thank you, Tressa and Petunia. I really appreciate it. I had no idea really. It's all very helpful, and I hope that other folks that will join in and watch this recording, they find this information helpful, and also just know too that they're not alone. We've got folks that I know are recently new to being an ostomate. And having that ostomy, and others that I know are in a position where they may have to have one in the near future, short or long term. And it's a big lifestyle change. It's completely different than what they may have known. And so thank you just so much. With your experiences and your expertise, I really do hope folks will find this information helpful, and just make them feel just that, again, that they're not alone, and that, there are people there that are there to help and can, and care too. I think that's really important.
Yeah. Mindy radiates care. So if you need some of that.
I do want you to mention though that there is a support group, the
Yes.
Greater Richmond Ostomy Association.
Patricia Ralston, do you have that email, or can you put that email
I
up?
can put the email.
Okay,
yeah,
there is an ostomy support group in Richmond that meets monthly.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So
Mike and Patricia are contacts.
Yes.
So
yeah. Yeah, usually ostomates are pretty funny crew. We kind of make the best of it. So it's kind of like when I hear someone's getting an ostomy, I always have to counter my oh my gosh, sweet, that's going to be so cool and life-saving, because usually people are devastated. And so anyway, I don't mean to make light of whatever people are facing when they come to that, but yeah, welcome to the club. Here we are. So
well, and the fact that Tressa can thrive after having this type of procedure, and you're right, it is something to celebrate because it is life-saving. So I hope everybody has enjoyed the presentation. This is recorded. We will be sending this out, and if there's any questions for Tressa, obviously you can find her right there at info@InHealthRVA.com. She's fantastic. We refer folks to her quite frequently because she's just a true expert in the field. So thank you everybody for joining us.
thank you.